we're going to talk about today in real life real estate this Monday, December 15th, which means we have 16 days left in the year, which means we have 10 days left until Christmas. So, oh my goodness, people aren't going to buy any real estate, which is probably true. We're not going to have any more closings this year from business that's written this year, but we're going to close out a lot of business that was written this year. So that's where most of our efforts are. But today we're going to play a game. Well, first of all, we're going to recap what I talked about last week. And I hope some of you will chat in. I'm going to open my chat here and tell me that you did the assignment. Craig, what assignment are you talking about? Last week we talked about the amount of wealth that people are sitting on that they're not really aware of, what's known as home equity. And we talked about the real way to buy real estate with no money down. And we talked about how information is abundant, but knowledge is lacking. So the mission was to educate people. First of all, the mission was to educate yourself on how to find a good deal in real estate, right? So we talked about a house, and I changed the numbers for today's conversation. Let's say a $300,000 house. You're an investor. You got to put 20% down. How much money is that? Come on, play with me. 20% of 300,000 is $60,000. How many people have $60,000 in equity in their home? Well, knowledge. You need to know that a bank will lend up to 90% of the appraised value. So if you owe, in this example, a $300,000 house, if you owe 200, it's worth 300. The bank will lend 90% of 300, which is 270. You only owe 200, so you can get an equity line for $70,000. So in that simple example, you know a lot of people that have $70,000 in equity in their home that they could use to do. Now, in an inflationary environment, what happens to cash? Cash gets devalued, right? You can't buy as much bread with a dollar as you could before inflation kicked in. But I'm jumping into part two here, so I won't get there yet. So inflation goes up, your cash sitting in the bank is going down in value. So it's better to put your cash into something that's going to appreciate as long as you can beat the yield that you're paying for that money. So $300,000 house, 20% down, $60,000. Then your homework assignment was to find a house that cash flowed, right? And if it didn't cash flow, I tasked you with making an offer on it that would make it cash flow. Because I said in my notes last week that a lot of people are afraid to make an offer on a house because the seller is unrealistically high and we don't want to insult them. But if you can back up your offer with facts and hit them with a number that makes sense, then at least you made the offer. And as any seller should be, happy to have an offer versus no offer. And there's a lot of sellers out there with no offers right now. So this is very strategic. And what I'm telling you, don't be afraid to make offers. I'm watching houses that the sellers started at 1,200,000 and they're accepting 900,000. What happened? Time on market. They got weather beaten. They got beaten down. So anyway, that was the example. So we took our $300,000 home. We put $60,000 down. We got to pay interest to ourselves on our $60,000. We got to pay interest to the bank on the $240,000 we're going to lend. We add up all those payments, put some extra fees in there, and find out what it's going to cost to carry that house. Then you put a little premium on top for profit, and that's the rent you need to get. And then you go to the MLS side and you look at the rentals and see if there's properties that will justify that amount of rent. And if there are, it's a good deal. And if there's not, pass. But the exercise was to practice this last week. So give me some hands in the chat if you would. Who ran a couple scenarios and found out that, wow, a lot of properties don't cash flow on rent? Come on, somebody chatted. Who did it? Come on, this isn't just entertainment. This is actually strategic thinking. Did anybody analyze any properties? Sarah, you did. You're such a good girl. Was it tough to find them that actually worked? Yeah, it is. It is. So it's a tough job. That's why you get all these wacky text messages from people saying, "Hey, I'm looking for an off-market property." Jess, you did. You couldn't find one. It is tough. I'm no doubt about it. But let's go back to what I just previously said. If you find one and it would be a good rental, but the price is too high, don't be afraid to make an offer. right? This is real estate from wisdom from 30 years ago. We never sold houses at 98% of asking price. Everything was negotiation. And now sellers just don't know where they are. But time is telling them. I watched a slide from that presentation went to last week, and the price reductions get deeper and deeper and deeper the longer the property is on the market. So once again, don't feel bad. A seller will, well, some aren't. Sellers should be happy to get an offer versus nothing. Jackie, you found a few, including your own house. Okay, so if we found one that actually worked on his rental, now you got a Facebook post or an Instagram post or whatever post you want to make, or a blog or whatever, and you can tell about, hey, I just found this house. You can buy it with $60,000 down, and it will pay you $400 a month or whatever it is. John says, when I look for clients, I start at the 1% rule and then look at the capital improvements in the first 5 years, then look at how much down versus life in or pure investment. Yeah, there's all kinds of ways. And I want you to be ultra conservative, but I want you to do the exercise, right? They are out there and you can find them. And that's where I said people are sending these text messages looking for off-market properties. They're just looking for sellers that have not hit the market yet they can get an offer in on, like most of them. Okay, so that's a recap of what we did last week. And I'm going to continue to say, hey, while times are a little bit slower, you're not showing as many properties, your listings aren't getting that much activity. Let's broaden our knowledge base and do a little bit of research. It doesn't take long. Just go in there and start hunting and pecking and looking around, find houses that are rent ready or find houses that are abused and need to be upgraded and budget for that. But that's part of our job as a real estate person. And I'll tell you, once you get an investor client who you do a good job for, guess what they want to do? Buy more, buy more. I was talking to a customer this weekend. Um, well, actually, talking last week. I saw him this weekend, and he said, "My goal is to have 50 rental properties." Is that a good client to have? Yep, he wants 50 properties, and hopefully he's going to use the same agent for every one of them. All right, jumping into today's topic. Today's topic is. Oh, I started off with the goal to give you knowledge for you to pass on to your database. Ooh, database. And to let them know that you set a goal of helping so many clients in 2026. So I'm starting to think now about 2026 and where you're going to take your business, right? And the very simple process in real estate is people need to own homes. And as a real estate agent, one of your first questions should always be, do you own your home or do you rent? And if the answer is they rent, then they become a prospect because they're just uneducated. So today we're going to go through the top 10 reasons why people should own a home. And then I'm going to give you some mathematical things that you can do that you should all know how to do, but you should get really good at it so you can do it at a cocktail party and have a conversation. So reason number one why you should own a home. This is going to be kind of corny in the beginning, but it gets better, I promise. Reason number one, you need a place to live. And you really only have three other options. You can pay rent to a landlord, you can mooch off someone else, or you can be homeless. Call it what it is. I don't know of another place to get. I guess you could join the service and they'd give you housing. But you need a place to live. So everybody has to live someplace. They're going to pay rent or they're going to pay a mortgage. Not most people have cash, right? So if we break it down to just those two things, everybody who's renting, in my opinion, I mean, no, let's not be unfair. There are a lot of reasons to rent, right? You're new to the area, you're not sure where you want to live, you know you're going to be transferred in a year or two. Sometimes you just shouldn't buy. But if you're going to be in the home for 5 years or longer, you probably should own rather than not own. All right, number two, your cash is not earning you very much. Most of you with any savings in the savings bank are getting maybe 4% interest on your money. Very safe, very secure, but it's not really generating wealth, right? Real estate is really interesting because, well, let's talk about what it is. The government, in its infinite wisdom, finds a way to get you to do what they want you to do, right? We talked about this before. The government wants you to own real estate, right? They don't want to take care of you forever. And they know real estate is a good way to accumulate wealth over your lifetime. So they want to encourage real estate ownership. So what do they do to encourage real estate ownership? They give us incentives. We're going to talk about those incentives today because these should be top of mind conversations coming out, rolling off your tongue when you're at a party talking to somebody who is a renter. Because remember, your first question is, do you own or rent? If the question is rent, it gives you a whole another dialogue to go down and say, why are you renting your home? Now, have you thought about the benefits of homeownership? So let's go. Reason number three, you'll likely have more than enough equity. You likely have more than enough equity in your current home to put a down payment on the investment property. And I put a little side note, unless you're presently renting, because renters don't have access to home equity lines of credit because they don't own a home to have equity in. But anybody who's bought a home in the last 5 years probably has equity in it and they don't know how to use it. And that's where you become the knowledge expert to help them do that. Reason number four, and this gets emotional for a lot of people. You can actually settle in for a while and not have to worry about moving in a year. For those of you who own a home, you have that secured. You don't have to move. It's your home. The payment's going to be the same every year, minus a couple fluctuations. But with renters, the landlord can change his mind and say, you know what? I decide I'm going to sell this home and I'm going to put it on the market. I'm going to sell it and you have to move out. Your lease is only good for a year. It does happen. Some people get longer term leases. Some people stay in the same house for decades, but it's never a known. You could be asked to leave at any time, in which case you have to take your home and relocate, and it's not your choice. I think psychologically that has a lot of meaning to people because stability is one of the basic human needs that people want, right? They need shelter, but they want permanence. They want to know they got a place to come home to. So that's number four. You can settle in and not have to move because conversely is you move into an apartment and the rent goes up and you can't afford it anymore, or the rent goes way up and they kick you out, or something goes wrong, you break the rules, you're out, you're out, you're out, and you got to move again. Reason number five, you can customize it without permission. This is going to tie into number 10, and I promise we will get math in a minute. But the fact that you can customize it without permission is amazing. You know, when you go out to a model home center and you see something really cool where somebody, put some wood trim on the wall and framed a headboard or something out of it, you go, oh, I could do that. And then you go to Home Depot and you spend $50 on wood and you have a project and you make a project and you get to customize your house and make it yours. Those are my crooked shelves. I built those myself, right? And you don't have to ask for permission because many landlords don't let you modify the premises in any way, shape, or form. You can't paint it the color you want. Um, I know Jessica just had her baby room painted. She got to pick the colors. Landlords don't let you do that. You can't just go customize things on your own in their home because it's not your home. So that's reason number five, customize without permission. Number six, you can have whatever breed of dog you want. My dog's approaching 110 pounds. Most places have restrictions. You can't have more than a 30 or 40-pound dog. So I can't find a place to rent that would accept my dog. How terrible. But if you own a home, you can have whatever size dog you want. That's kind of corny. But these are talking points. I'll send them out to you again. But the thought I had was we got 15 days before Christmas. So if we did one of these points and make it kind of funny, add your personality to it, and every day for the next 10 days, send out a reason you should own a home in 2026 and make a joke out of it. Number seven, you can have a garage attached to your house. I was talking to a young man the other day, and he was detailing my boat, and he was telling me about his motorcycle and how much he loves his motorcycle. And he's putting lights on it, he's putting all this cool stuff. And I said, where do you keep your motorcycle? He goes, oh, I rent a garage down the street. New concept. So he has to rent a garage. So when he wants to go work on his bike, which he does all the time, he leaves his girlfriend and he goes to his garage and he works on his bike, motorcycle. Little things we don't think about, but most homes, not most, but a lot of homes have a garage. And if you're going to buy a home, you can buy a home with a garage and not have to rent a garage down the road to keep your motorcycle in. See, things we don't think about. This one gets interesting. Number 8, you can demonstrate stability for your children. And that was my thought. And then I went to ChatGPT and I asked it to verify my thought. And it said, Growing up in a stable, owner-occupied home is statistically associated with better educational outcomes, higher graduation rates, and positive long-term economic effects for children. Source: Habitat for Humanity. Interesting. You can demonstrate stability for your children. Homeowners raise smarter kids that get graduate from school. And you know what else they do? They tend to become homeowners on their own because they do what mom and dad did. Very interesting fact that I checked before I said it. So that was kind of cool. All right. The meat of the conversation today is right now. And number nine, reason number nine, you're a good U.S. citizen. This is a reason to own a home in 2026. And the government likes to reward good citizens by giving them incentives for doing what the government wants them to do. Hey, call it what it is. This is Tom Wheelwright. He is the CPA for Robert Kiyosaki. And he tells lots of stories like this. But if you pay attention, the government will tell you what they want you to do. And when you do it, they reward you for doing it. So here's how they reward you. And this is the part I want you to really understand. This is your cocktail party conversation. Um, Government says, we want you to own real estate. When you buy it, we'll let you deduct your property taxes and the interest on your mortgage from your federal tax bill. Wonk, wonk, wonk. Yes, that's a major, major, major benefit of owning real estate. And that's why real estate is considered a hedge against inflation. So let's break this down. In my example of a $300,000 house with 20% down, that is a $240,000 loan. So if you do the mortgage interest, principal and interest deduction calculation on the $240,000 loan, it ends up being about $64,000 $54,000 in interest and about $10,000 in property taxes. So that's $64,000. So let's say, for purposes, and this is where I want you to be really quick on your brain. Let's say you report $100,000 a year in earnings on your tax return. And there's something called a standardized deduction. The standard deduction runs between $15,000 and $30,000, depending on your housing lifestyle situation. Single people, married people, whatever. So if you don't have enough deductions to meet the standardized deductions to lower your taxes, then this doesn't matter. But once you own a home and you get to deduct these things, you don't have to take the minimum alternative deduction. You get to have a Schedule C and deduct more expenses from your income. So in my example, you're a $100,000 a year income earner. You get the standardized deduction of $15,000 to $30,000, depending on your situation, and you pay taxes on the balance. But when you have mortgage interest and property taxes that you owe, that you pay, you get to deduct those off your income. So an $100,000 income earner gets to deduct $64,000 worth of expenses, which is more than the alternative minimum. So $64,000, and let's say you're at a 25% tax bracket, that ends up being $16,000 that you save. You don't have to pay an income tax. And $16,000 is, I'm sorry, you're saying your tax percentage of $16,000, which is about $4,000 or $333 a month. So two properties, one is a rental, one is an ownership. I own my house and my payment is, and this example is 100% financed, $2,600 a month. The rental house is $2,600 a month. They don't cost less. They got to cover their cost. But when I own my home, I get the tax benefit of $333 a month. So my $2,600 payment is really $2,266, where my renter friend is paying $2,600. Right? So it's cheaper because the government is giving me benefits to own a home than it is to rent a home. Now, in fairness, we should talk about the negatives. If the faucet breaks, you got to buy a new faucet. If the AC breaks, you got to fix the AC. Many times tenants, landlords take care of that. And that's one of the reasons why people do rent. But you're saving $300 a month on your payment because of your tax savings. That's almost what we said was $4,000 a year. That pays for a lot of repairs. And then what's the other thing that people have? Called appreciation, right? Even in this year, homes appreciated 1.2%. And this is where that hedge against inflation comes in because your home value is what appreciates. So it's a $400,000 house. It goes up 1%. That is $4,000. Another $300 a month and appreciation that you're gaining. You're not realizing it, but you're gaining it. Now, what about when the national average kicks in and houses appreciate at 5% a year? 5% of $400,000 is $20,000 a year. But what's really interesting and what a lot of people don't understand is that you didn't pay $400,000 for your house. You paid $80,000 for your house. That's your down payment. So that $20,000 savings is off of your, or investment is off of your $80,000 down payment. So it's a 25% return on cash. All right, 5% return on the value of the home, 20% return on cash, 25% return on cash. Huge, huge numbers. So we're going to go through that again because that's kind of what I wanted to make sure you're understanding. So last week we talked about talking to people while you're having your holiday festivities because you are a realtor. And realtors, one of the questions is, how's the market? And you could say, you know what? It just drives me crazy that some people are still renting real estate. By the way, do you own your home or do you rent? Segue conversation into these facts that make real estate a good long-term decision to own, right? And not for everybody. Don't become that pesky person that all you talk about is real estate. But if you have the opportunity to educate somebody, empower, educate, and encourage somebody to build long-term wealth, this is how you do it for most people, right? You're not going to find a lot of wealthy people that don't own real estate, right? And as you're talking to people, that's what it's going to be. It was fun at the Tampa party. I met one of our agents' children who was just 18 and getting the real estate license. And he says to me, "Hey, with all your experience, what would you do if you were just getting into starting off in real estate and you're my age?" I said, "I would talk to all of your friends." Sound familiar? Because your friends have parents, and those parents typically live in homes. If they don't live in homes, then they're renting an apartment or a home, and you can help them, and they would like to help their friend's friend buy real estate. Same rule applies for you. Real estate is the people and communications business, but we want to give them the knowledge. This goes back to the knowledge versus the information, the knowledge to talk about. So last week we covered the knowledge of why investing in real estate is right. It's the right thing to do if you can find the right property. And we realize that it's hard to find the right property. But do you think if you spent 20 or 30 minutes a day during the rest of the season, you could find a property that would cash flow? And then you can market that property that cash flows to, and an investor would say, "Oh, really? Let's try." And then you can make an offer to see what happens. And then all of a sudden you're a real estate agent who's generating business and something's going to click, guys. That's on the investment side. The rest of today's conversation was about how home ownership builds wealth. When people die, they generally, have an inheritance of something that they give to somebody. What is the majority of a deceased person's assets? Their home and the equity they built in that home over the time that they've owned it. And it becomes a substantial part of many people's wealth, right? So to let people live in rental homes when there's a better alternative in their situation, I think you have a duty to let them know that. It's funny, I told my brother, I'm weeding my yard, and he goes, "That's ridiculous. Why would you be doing that? You're taking a job from somebody who really needs it." I want you to have that same attitude with a renter and say, "Look, renting has its place. Tell me about your situation. Why are you choosing to rent instead of own?" Right? Or if they do own, say, "How long have you owned?" And that's going to open the door to the conversation about how much equity they have. Sales 101, guys. We've got to push home ownership. We had 4 million home sales in the United States this year. There are more than 4 million homes on the market. Next year, we're predicting over 5 million home sales. I want you to pick up that extra 20% in sales And that's going to come by having these conversations. So before I get to number 10, because we're almost there, I'm going to cover number 9 again. And I'm being facetious, but I'm really not. You are a good US citizen, and the government likes to reward its citizens if they do what they want them to do. The government wants you to own homes because every time a home sale transacts, $100,000 floats around the marketplace because we hire plumbers and electricians and home inspectors and realtors and blah, 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 blah. But money flows as a result of a real estate transaction. So the government wants more of those. The government wants stability. The government wants the population to have its own assets so it doesn't have to support them in their old age because Social Security is probably not going to get you there, right? So understanding fact number 1, the government wants you to own real estate. And the reason they how they reward you is they let you deduct the property taxes and the interest. And I'm gonna add in appreciation on your thing too. So $400,000 loan, 6% mortgage, $24,000 in interest, right? Is that right? Six. Yeah. No, in my example, it says $54,000 in mortgage interest and $10,000 in property taxes. So you get to deduct $64,000 at a 25% tax rate. That is $16,000 in deductions. All right. And that on your primary home plus your other home might get you out of the alternative minimum tax, which then lets you deduct other things because the government laws, tax laws are set up that way. So that works out to be a $333 a month savings on your monthly payment that's coming back to you through tax savings at the end of the year. So it is really cheaper to own a home than it is to rent a home because you get the mortgage interest tax deduction. And the lower money you put down, the higher loan is, the more interest you get. Right? So if you know anybody who's taking the standard deductions, it's because they don't own enough real estate, they're not paying enough interest, and they're not building any equity, and they don't have any appreciation benefits to go on with. And we talked about renting $2,600, $2,300, same house, but this guy's getting the benefits and the tax and getting the appreciation over the long haul. Take 5% a year of a $400,000 house. Over 5 years, that adds up to a bunch of money that you would not have as a renter. Okay, beat that thing. Reason number 10 to own a home. And this one takes a little bit of explanation, but I think you'll get it real quick. Drum roll, please. And this is it. There is an unexplainable feeling in the pride of home ownership. As I drive through my neighborhood and I see the pride that my neighbors have decorating their palm trees and putting their inflatable ornaments up and putting little PVC poles over the sidewalk and trimming them with lights. So when you walk through the sidewalk, it looks like you're going through a light show. There's something about pride of ownership, planting plants in your yard, watching the trees grow, naming them, whatever you do. There's an unexplainable pride of home ownership that you just don't have in a rental. So I wanted to give you 10 reasons to reach out for the next 10 days, make it a little joke, and let your friends follow you and build up to something that's really meaningful. But these other intangibles are definitely benefits of home ownership. And I just wanted to leave you that thought for the next 10 days. Take one thought, and I'll send this out in a short bit. And add on to it, make a video out of it, have fun with it, say there are 10 major reasons, or make it 11, 12, whatever you come up with, that you really should consider owning real estate in 2026. And I'm here to help you. Here's reason number 1. And then number 2, say same opening, and here's reason number 2. And the next day, here's reason number 3. You get the message. So that's my thought for you on real life real estate today. As the holiday season is in full swing, it doesn't mean you have to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. These are things you can do. I hope you take advantage of it, and we'll see you for the broker briefing tomorrow morning. Happy Monday.